Let's break down the command we just ran and inspect some different components. First off, with Docker run, we specified an image. Here we specified the image nginx. Now whenever we specify an image, it's usually going to be pulled from an image repository. In this case, if we don't specify a repository, Docker is going to check on its repository called Docker Hub. If we want to check out the images that we've ran and subsequently download to our machine, we can type Docker images and get a list of all of our images. So that's the image. This other portion, the -p flag, where we specified the port, is also very important. We'll see that we mapped the outward-facing port, which we accessed on localhost on our machine, to the container port, which we're exposing by specifying what port we should expose, port 80. We can verify some of this behavior by running some commands. I could type docker run, but instead of exposing port 80 within the container, we're going to expose port 50. Now, since nginx isn't running on port 50, if we try to access localhost 3000, we won't be able to access it. If I change it back to port 80, Control C to quit the container, then change that to 80, then it'll be accessible. Another thing I can do is I can change the outward facing port that we're exposing. I could say change it to port 5000. Now localhost 3000 won't be accessible, but localhost 5000 will be. Lastly, those IT flags that we had at the very end of that command, very beginning of that command, allow us to run a terminal shell in the container. Now this isn't really a good example of that, even though I did say that you should usually run Docker run with these IT flags. But here's a better example. Let's say I want to run Docker run. I'm just going to specify nginx. I won't expose any ports, but I'm going to override the default command. Instead of doing the default command, I'm going to explicitly specify that I want to run a shell within the container. We'll see that if I don't specify those IT flags, it won't work. But if I do, then we'll see there's some different behavior. It'll allow me to then connect to that container and then start running commands like any other terminal prompt. I can inspect the folder contents and run various terminal commands. I'm going to type exit. Another thing you can do when running Docker run is that you can also run that particular command, but in the background. I can do that by specifying -d. We'll see that I'll spit out an ID associated with the container. And then when I go back here and go to localhost 3000, do this little refreshing, I'll then still be able to access the container while then being able to access my terminal window over here.